thank you so much for letting us know that you couldn't hear, and now I'm here, and you can hopefully all hear me for the rest of this. Um, so yeah, a little bit about myself. I'm a singer. I'm a songwriter. I put out my very first album this May. It's all kind of storytelling driven with pop hooks and percussive instrumentation, and I basically, did everything myself with the help of a couple close friends and family members and partners who helped me with some stuff along the way. But I'm a wholly independent artist, and the record was able to do some really cool things, between growing some awesome super fans to getting a lot of positive press in popular publications to getting on the Grammy ballot for Best Pop Vocal Album. And at the end of year issue for Music Connection magazine, they've listed me as one of their top 25 new music critiques, as well as unsigned artists of 2019. So a lot of cool stuff has been able to happen with this very first. These are my very first releases ever. Not only just my first album, but also my first time releasing music that I've written. So I'm learning a lot from the process, and I'm happy to share with you any wisdom that I may have gained from this process, any pitfalls that I think you could avoid that I maybe fell into along the way. I've learned so much from it, so I'm very excited to get to share with you what I've learned.
That's so awesome. I love it. And one thing I also want to touch on, which I kind of mentioned while we were resetting, was the long game of it all, between relationships and between, and also the cold calling factor. You had some relationships, you had connections between, it's kind of like, the whole 7 degrees of separation between Kevin Bacon or whatever, it's like, right. Call this guy and then call this guy. And, so there's all of these,
it literally is that.
Like just one step leads to the next, and really leveraging those connections. And then the power of networking, because this business is really a large part of networking. And I think that some people don't always recognize how important that aspect is. Because relationships are so critical. So you want to just dive in?
I was telling you last night, I made a little list. I was trying to get clear on what I really learned, what were the things that I think I did really well, and what were the things that I think that I could have benefited from, some advice on that I didn't have at the time. And one of the tips that I had truly was that it's all about relationships. Everything, to me, relationships are pretty much the core of everything in the music industry. And like you said, it's like the 5 degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever. They definitely build over time. So one example of that would be that I reached out at the beginning of the project. I reached out looking for a service, and I was Googling, I think it was a videographer type thing, and I was looking for these different videographers, and I found one that I really loved, and I reached out to their manager, and the manager happened to be a radio host, and so she was like, you know what? I think that this videographer is out of your price range. However, I really love your music, and I hope it's cool with you if I play it on my radio show. And so she ended up starting to play some of my songs on her radio show every couple of weeks. And I would share them, and I would share the fact that she was doing it, and I would thank her, and we ended up building a relationship over literally, Brianna, a year and a half. And after about a year and a half's time, she was like, hey, do you want to come on my show? We'll do a 2.5-hour special about you and your music. We can play all of your influences. We can have you play your songs live. We'll play the recordings from your record, and it'll just be like a whole thing devoted to you and your growth as an artist. And that all stemmed genuinely from me reaching out, trying to see what the rates were for a videographer.
Yeah.
It's like that's amazing. How bizarre, things that's how bizarre things happen in this industry, truly, is that you just have no idea where some of these relationships are going to come from. And like I said, as an independent artist, I was unable to afford that videographer at the time. It was like I didn't quite realize, but they were like a pretty big videographer. And that still didn't, because I reached out and was putting myself out there, and that it, even in a totally different way, that led to something coming in a different fashion. And same with, I had this music teacher 4 years ago that I took this class on, build, like being a singer-songwriter or working singer-songwriter. And at the time, I wasn't a working singer-songwriter. I had never put out a single song. I was writing, but I was kind of shy about showing what I was writing. And 4 years later, the teacher from that class saw what I was doing with this record, invited me to be on his podcast to talk about my process. And he was like, oh, you've put a lot of what was in the class into practice. So I'd love to talk to you about it on the podcast. Went on the podcast. He then ended up, telling Music Connection magazine about me, because he had friends over there that he thought should know about my music. And they, ended up listening to the music and put me in both their November and December issues as their, top unsigned artist of 2019. They ended up reviewing, of course, they reviewed the record, they listened to it, they ended up really liking it, giving it a high score, which is then what led it to be in the top 25 critiques. But it all happened like that kind of Kevin Bacon degree type thing that you were just saying. Like it's years of making connections with people that you don't even know are going to pay off in years time. And it was never for me about, networking. It was genuinely about building a real relationship with these people, having no clue. I had no idea that a teacher that I took a class from 4 years ago was even ever going to come back into my life in any capacity. I truly just showed up and was there to learn, made the relationships, and then over time they kind of started to come back around. And the same thing even happened with the Grammy ballot. I referred a friend to my music producer because she was like, I love how your record is. And I was like, well, let me connect you. I referred her to him. We ended up becoming really good friends. I started hanging around her friends. Some of them ended up being members of the Recording Academy, who then endorsed my record for the Grammy ballot. And they got a bunch, of other people in the Academy to also endorse it and say that they thought it was a great candidate for this Best Pop Vocal Album of the Year. So it literally, to me, was just, and those are a lot, quick couple just examples, just so you can see how it really did end up, connecting the dots looking backwards. But to me, it really was just about, being kind to people, building genuine, honest relationships over the years, not expecting anything from anybody, really just showing up, doing your best work, constantly telling people about what you're creating, and, making sure to follow up on big opportunities, because sometimes those big opportunities do pass if you don't end up following through. If someone sends you an email and is like, hey, would you be interested in connecting with so-and-so? If you sleep on that, you might miss the deadline for for your album to be submitted for a Grammy, like
Absolutely.
these are all, I think, I hope that made sense, but it really was a lot of relationships that I'd built over, the course of like 10 years. Honestly.
Absolutely. No, it does make sense. And it's good for people to hear that, because, anytime that you're watching a Grammy show or any sort of award show, and somebody comes on the scene and it's like, who is that? And you get this perception like it happened overnight or something. Like there's this perception that like they just started and they just broke on the scene. And yes, they may have just broken on the scene, but they've been at it for probably years, like a long time, creating those relationships and being consistent and working their craft and really honing in on who they are as an artist. So yeah, I think it's just really valuable.
Well, I mean, one person I can think of in that regard is like Lizzo. Like Lizzo's been around for years, and she's just now on the ballot for Best New Artist. But just because it's best new artist, that doesn't, that actually technically means whenever you broke through, your breakthrough year was. You could be an artist that's been around for 30 years, but if the public just really caught on to you, you could still win best new artist. And she's been around for years, even if it seems like suddenly her success just happened overnight. It's like, I think Truth Hurts was released back in 2017, something like that. And that's her big record this year. The video, I believe, came out in 2017. So, and that song is up for Song of the Year, I believe. And because it blew up this year, it was considered, able to be a part of the Grammys for Song of the Year, even though it technically didn't come out this year. So it just goes to show you that things really build over time. And I think being a genuine, kind, honest person is what serves you the best in the long run, even though you can't see it as though it's you're trying to get that to serve you, because people smell through the BS immediately, I believe. I mean, you can always tell when somebody just solely wants something from you and when somebody truly is building a genuine, authentic relationship with you. And I think you always feel better when it's, the latter.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Cool. So it sounds like you've touched on a few of those top tips, the relationships, building them over time, building real relationships, following through, being genuine and kind, authentic, etc.
Right.
What else? What else do you want to
So I wrote out some stuff because I really wanted to make sure that I got you guys to the core of what I think really was most helpful to me. My top tip number 1 was to plan months in advance. And I know that sounds a little bit scary, but I'm a firm believer of not putting the cart before the horse. Like, I took things as they came and I really focused on each step before moving on to the next step. So personally, I would rather things take longer and be done really right than have to course correct after the fact, which can actually take even longer for you. It doesn't seem that way, but then once you end up being like, oh, wow, this wasn't built right, or you end up having to go back and deconstruct and then rebuild, which actually takes even longer. So, like, for example, my boyfriend works in app design, and he was explaining to me a similar thing that he's learned from lessons and mistakes he's made, that, sometimes paying for the right thing and saving up for that, or taking the extra time to get something right, is better than correcting like bad code kind of down the line. So sometimes people in the app world will skimp on, paying for the developer or taking the extra time to build the app right. But then the code is bad for years and years and years, and they end up then having to go back and like scrap the entire thing. They wasted marketing dollars on something that didn't work. So that's obviously an extreme example of this, but my thought always is to finish the music first, take the time to mix it, take the time to master it, come up with a marketing plan that you can enact months later. Because, release shows, you sometimes have to book months in advance to get the venue that you want. You have to plan photo shoots. You have to plan video content. And if you don't have this content, built well, by the time, you oftentimes, like, for example, I was able to get one of my songs and videos to premiere on the line of Best Fit, which is like this tastemaker indie blog. But I had that premiere scheduled over a month before it actually went live. So that meant in order for that to happen, I had to be pitching the content like 2 to 3 weeks even before that, Mm-hmm. So the content has to be ready and it has to be done. And I think that one of the things that holds independent artists back the most is, and this is something I saw even from Music Connection magazine, is that their recordings don't sound of a high production value, or the mixes are not quite right, the masters. So even if the song is absolutely amazing, you're immediately limiting where the song can go, because a lot of these other reviews that they were giving certain artists were really low. And the reason was because the production quality is not up to industry standard. The mixes are not good. You can't really hear it. And part of the reason why I did get such a high score and why I was then able to be listed in their end of year issue, you know, as one of their top unsigned artists was because I got such a high score on the production value. And also the mixing and the mastering, all that stuff. And that doesn't even have to do with my talent as a songwriter or as a singer. That has to do with taking the time to make really conscious choices. And, you know, it took me 2.5 months maybe or more to mix the record. I think probably three months, because I was going back and forth and sending it, and I was tweaking little things. I mean, obviously that is kind of an extreme. You don't have to go to that extreme. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, but that's just an example of, like, you know, all those things, those little decisions add up over time. Because I never wanted the reason why my music couldn't be added to something was because it doesn't sound professional enough.
Right. Absolutely. And I think people do underestimate the importance of hiring a really strong engineer,
right,
to take care of those aspects of it. No, it's a great point.
and I get it. Sometimes you can't, like, sometimes you're like financially in a position where you're like, I just need to do this all myself, and I might not be at the skill level yet. And in that case, you know, I would never tell someone to stop, you know, don't pursue your dreams, don't put stuff out, because sometimes songs that are kind of more lo-fi end up doing really well just because the song is so great. But it's rare that those songs then also get added to certain industry prestiges, you know what I mean? But you might gain a huge fan base of it, which is maybe even better to you. So I would never say not to put it out if you don't have the resources, but I would definitely say, like, take the time. You know, I had this idea in my head that I wanted to make an album since 2013 or 2014. My album came out in 2019. That sounds absolutely insane, but that's the truth. Like, I really was like, it took me time to figure out the right people and the engineers and the mixers and the mastering. I wanted to make sure that it's great as like a base to jump off of. So I would say I'm always a fan of, like, actually taking the time and being patient, as opposed to having to go back and be like, well, that wasn't good.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that.
Because you end up wasting more money in the long run, truly, because you might be marketing something that is not, you know, if you had just saved a little bit extra, that marketing dollar would go a lot farther, you know?
Yes.
So that was my number one tip, which actually led into my number two tip, which was, I think you really need to stockpile content. As an indie artist, you know, as one person, the only way I was able to promote this record for over a year through multiple singles was to stockpile content. And I wouldn't have had the energy to be recording while promoting and while shooting and while, you know, playing live shows. It's a lot to do at one time for one person. And, you know, sometimes I did have to go and create more promo images or whatever, and I can't even imagine if I also had to then go shoot a new photo shoot and had to also be recording my next song, and also, like, it was so much work to do that I really, the only way I personally was able to do it to the level that I think I was able to was because I recorded all the songs, mixed the songs. I did a photo shoot that you know, I shot probably like 6 or 7 different looks within one day. And that was literally just because I needed to save money. You get one photographer, one makeup artist, one location that has multiple locations within it. And I use those photos for multiple single covers. It looks like they're completely different days, different outfits, different looks, but it was all done within like a very long, like 10-hour day, honestly. So
I remember when you did that. I mean, I remember the smoke bombs or something like that, and like the beautiful dress, and like, I mean, you You did a killer job on that.
Thank you. Yeah, one of the looks was the smoke bomb in the desert. Then I had like a very colorful hotel pool and a hotel room. And
Uh-huh.
then I had um, a vintage like convertible red car. And they were all done on the same day. And they're very specific, different locations. But I did like a month of research to find a spot where I could hit, because I really thought about what does the vibe look like? What is the branding? So I found a spot that had, the desert with the mountains, a hotel that was very colorful, and also a vintage convertible that was a huge favor that I could borrow within like a 2-mile radius.
Wow.
So that I could do it within the same day, so that I didn't have to then pay for the makeup artist and the photographer and the hotel room and everything an additional day. So it's like literally just the planning, which kind of brought me to one of my other points actually, was that you need to get really crafty with your promotion, and with your stockpiling of your content, because you need a ton of content. And you don't necessarily have to do it at an incredibly unaffordable rate. If you're able to do it in a creative way. Like one of my most successful teaser videos was from stock footage that I then cut in a totally different way, in a series of like song clips. And then I also did this nice guy of the day segment on my Instagram and Facebook, where I would have people submit nice guys, and I would call them the nice guy, because I have a song called Nice Guy about, encouraging guys to be more themselves in a society full of hyper masculinity and all this stuff. And so I would get these recommendations. I would then make the guys nice guy of the day. I would stalk them and find like a little tip about them that I thought was really like funny, or like they like threw a birthday party for their dog, or all real stuff that I would research and find. And then I would post it, tag them, and it ended up getting a lot of people to reshare their nice guy posts, because they, it's funny to be nice guy of the day or the week. So,
and you had a shirt, you had merch too.
Yeah, I had a shirt, a guy's shirt that said nice guy, and a girl's tank that said I want a nice guy, because I thought it was funny if it was like a meet cute, like if both people were wearing it or something and that they would meet, or if you wanted to get the tank for your girlfriend who never dates nice guys, it'd be kind of a funny joke. Or if you're a guy that wants to, anyway, you can do things really creatively that, of course, the nice guy of the day thing took energy and time, but it didn't cost me a single dollar to do that. And just doing that alone ended up getting me to perform Nice Guy on a radio station, because they had heard about the campaign of Nice Guy of the Day, because they thought it was really funny. So, like it literally is just jumping and trying different things. Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
That's so great.
I want to make sure I leave room for you to talk too, but my third tip was to expect to need a ton of graphic design, because another thing that I didn't realize, you do need to factor that cost in between unless you can do it yourself. You either have to learn how to do it, or you might have to pay someone to do it, or find a friend or someone who can do it well, that is willing to help you. But you're going to need single covers, you're going to need show posters, maybe lyric videos, the designing and the printing of a physical CD, if you're going to do that. A lot of people forget that the graphic design is a part of being an independent artist and an entrepreneur.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that on that level, there are times when you can put together your own, using a site like canva.com or whatnot, put your own graphic design where, say you need it for an Instagram post, and it's just kind of low pro. But when it comes to big stuff like this, you do need to hire a professional. And look, it doesn't always have to be like the most expensive person. You can always go to, Fiverr or Upwork, and you can pitch ideas and then see what comes back. And you can have a budget. You can say, okay, $20, what can you bring to me? And then, or $50, and like be able to compare and contrast. So this doesn't have to be, a $300 expense. There's always creative ways to get around it. But I would
There's
agree.
totally, yeah, there's totally creative ways to
Or
get around
trade. I
it.
know that we talk about that a lot. Trading, knowing someone that you're friends with
Yeah.
that is maybe an expert in that area, and maybe you can
Oh
help them with
yeah.
something. Like you've told me that you've helped them pitch for a press before, and they've helped you with marketing, or
Oh
like
yeah,
leveraging.
that was my other tip, was to call in favors. You know, I thought of a lot of my friends' talents and I brought them in on different aspects of the project. And like my friend wrote my bio and I wrote her press releases, and she would pitch me for certain publications at the beginning, and I would pitch her for like LA Weekly, and like we helped each other out, because it can be tough to do this for yourself. Like I can write a bio for someone else, but when you write your own bio, my friend was like, "You're way more awesome than you're making this bio sound." Whereas for her, I could write like, "She's amazing. She did," but it's tough when it's yourself, and sometimes you do need to call in a trusted friend. On the other side of things, I don't always recommend working with friends personally, because sometimes you want to be able to tell someone, "Hey, this is not how I love this," and it can be tough when it's a friend who's doing it for free or for a very low rate or for a trade. I don't always recommend working with friends, if I'm being honest with you guys, but sometimes you really do need to call in favors. And I would just say to make sure that it's the right person, who you can really be honest with, and that you don't end up having to put something out that you're not like really stoked on.
Or sometimes it will take somebody you hired, 3 days to turn it around, but it might take your friend like 3 weeks to turn around.
Always. Usually, honestly, that's the other lesson I really did learn, is that if you want something done quickly and at the like quality level you want, sometimes you really do need to pay like you need to save up a little bit of money to do that, because if your friend is doing this for you as a favor for free, you might not see your work for 2 months sometimes.
Absolutely.
Um, and if you're on a time crunch, or if you want this done, I think it depends how much time you have to wait. So that's another huge lesson I've learned, is that sometimes I've learned, like, I don't always want to wait 3 months for something, and then sometimes it's not exactly how you wanted it, and you don't, and then you feel like you can't always say that you want it changed or something, because the person did it for next to nothing or nothing, and it already took them 3 months. And so that's where
Yeah.
I think something like Fiverr comes in, or saving up some money and really specifically choosing someone that you think is going to do it exactly how you have it in your head.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's so great. Okay, well, I think
Yeah.
we have time for a few more tips, and then we'll
Yeah.
so give us your last two that, yeah.
My last best two. Okay, good
I know it's
question.
hard to choose.
No, well, we kind of went through some of them already.
Cool.
I'm trying to think that I didn't say.
And if there's any
Well, very
questions,
quickly.
type them in now, because we do have a little bit of a delay. So if you have any questions for Kara or I, then type them in and we can get to them.
Yeah, for sure. Let's do it. I think that, a good video could go a really long way. That was one of my tips, because I noticed a lot more people watched my music video than they did listen to the songs at first, and it grabbed me a lot of super fans from that. But again, back to tip one, make sure that you shoot the video months, but like in advance, before the single's coming out, so you can have time to pitch it. That's like one of my big tips as well. And then another big tip um, was that, I think you need to be really persistent and be very specific about who you are and what you're trying to accomplish. Because, like I was saying, I was able to get a premiere with that blog, Line of Best Fit, on my own without a publicist. And I have used publicists before that have been awesome, but this was an instance where I was able to do it totally myself. And what I did was, I had to email them for multiple releases before they finally got back to me on one. I think I emailed them for 4 releases. And then on the 5th release, I finally got a yes. And I was very
Wow.
specific in the email, you know, what the song was about. I wrote my own press release. I had the content, like I said, a month or two in advance so that I could get them to accept it, sent them all the like the info, the tags, the email or the video embeds, the song embeds. They had all that about a month in advance, probably a month and a half in advance. They said yes. A month in advance, it was scheduled to come out. And, you know, I'm not, as an independent artist, you know, you need to kind of, I think, be really pitching specifically to certain blogs and be repeatedly persistent about it. You can't really just drop a single overnight. At least I can't. I'm not Beyonce yet. So, you know, an overnight drop would likely fall on deaf ears. You know, it took me, like I said, 5 releases to finally get a yes from the same email address. So that's just some perspective, you know, for people. And, you know, another thing I will say is that, um, what I would say is that, which is a big one to me, is that I didn't get a lot of playlist love for this record. But what I did find was a really great core fan base who call themselves the Kara Keats, and they have their own Facebook and Instagram. And I did like live stream celebrations. And this kind of goes into a pitfall as well, to lead into pitfalls. But I know people who have millions of streams on Spotify, but they don't have active listeners, and they can't necessarily sell 10 tickets at a live show. And this is a real story, real example. I've had people that I've played shows with that have millions of Spotify streams from, you know, perhaps being the background music on a playlist, you know, or something like a really long playlist that someone plays in the background, and they have millions of followers, millions of streams, couldn't sell 5 or 10 tickets at a show. So meanwhile, I have far less streams. I'm really not on any playlist, but I've sold out nearly every single release show that I did with this project. So it just goes to show you that the super fans and really building real relationships with even a smaller number of people goes a really long way. I mean, I had some super fans flying in from various states. I think Val is on here right now. She came in from Ohio. I had someone drive down from Northern California, like people coming in who were just like really supportive. And I'm so, so grateful for them, because that's to me everything. But it just goes to show you that the playlist thing is a part of it, but not everything. And I think you have to like really, you know, give yourself time to not burn out, because this is a lot and it can be overwhelming. And if you see it as incremental steps, I think it's easier to not, you know, to not burn out. So those are my tips, really.
That's amazing.
I hope you guys find them helpful.
We do have a question from Jessica, she's an artist as well. She's amazing.
Hey, Jessica.
And she says, what do you feel about releasing a 4 to 5 song EP versus a full length album? Which, this is a great question. I hear this all the time. And I know there's kind of like, everyone's got their own opinion on it, but what's yours?
I highly recommend it. I did a 12-song album. I think I was a little over ambitious with it. Like, it ended up, you know, it came out, you know, I don't think there's a wrong answer. I definitely think you should have at least 4 to 5 songs. I think that for me, I wanted to have a base, because I didn't want to just put out a single and then wait 2 years. It's very hard to build upon success unless you have some content stockpiled. It's really tough to just put out one song, disappear for 2 years, you know, and have nothing to keep pushing. I wanted to make sure that I had, like, if one song happened to do well, that you could go find 10 others or 11 others. I don't think you need 11. I think if one song does well and you have 4 others or 3 others, perfect, great. That said, what I did find, I was able to be, you know, I was able to be endorsed for the Grammy ballot because I had a full length album, because there's certain requirements with the Grammys that you have to, you know, to be considered best pop vocal album, you have to have released a certain number of tracks within the calendar year. And so because I happen to have had that, which is, not always usual, in the fact that a lot of people are doing EPs, it allowed me to get onto that. That said, most people are not even concerned with that. I was not even concerned. I didn't even know about that until after the fact, that I didn't even know I was going to be on there. So that's probably not a concern at first for an indie artist. That was a cool perk, but that's not the main reason you do this. So I would say 4 to 5 songs is the best way to go, honestly, because you can see how your audience responds. I learned so much from releasing the first couple of songs, and from releasing this project, that I would have gone back and done the whole thing differently. So I don't think, I probably, going back in retrospect, would have only recorded 4 to 5 songs and just seen how that goes, because I learned, like I said, so much that I could have then put towards the other 6 songs. And I already recorded the other 6 songs, and they were already ready to go, and I already spent money on them, and so they were done, they were part of it. But I think you can learn nearly just as much from releasing 4 or 5 that will then inform your next 4 or 5.
That's great. That's a great piece of advice. Thank you for that question, Jessica.
Yeah, thank you. I have that same question myself. So
yeah. Okay, so we
so if anyone has any
nearing towards the end. Yes. So yeah, ask any more questions, and then maybe give us a few pitfalls that we definitely need to avoid.
Really, I have a couple of pitfalls. I'll try to give them just quickly so you guys have them. One, I would avoid Spotify promotion services. I would be very cautious about them. Most of my friends have gotten scammed. They've gotten added to playlists that have a ton of followers, but they don't have active engagement. And it's worthless to be on a playlist with huge followers that have a 0.0005% engagement rate. Not all playlists are created equal. Be very careful when hiring any Spotify promotion services, because every single person I've talked to, for the most part, has been unhappy with them. That's my number one. Number two, be very strategic about what song you choose to drop first, because people are naturally very curious to listen to the first song. They want to hear how the sound is, what your genre is, what the vibe is. They want to hear the story of the project. So really come up with a plan for that first song. It's also very easy to get burned out from the first song. So I thought, I'll put my not favorite song necessarily first, because then I'll be ready for the next one. And by the time I had done that, I was very tired. I started to slow down because I put so much into that first song to make it a bang. So pick your very favorite song first, do the video for that very favorite song, because don't underestimate how much work it is and how much you're going to not maybe want to repeat it right away for the second. This might go without saying, but it's better to grow slowly and organically than have fake followers and no engagement. It just shows that you have a lot of people that don't care that much about what you're doing. So I would say go slowly, make sure your branding is coherent with your messaging, make it super easy for your ideal fan to find you and also love the music. And my 5th tip is, make sure you get, as a pitfall to avoid, make sure you get people to sign contracts. Even if they don't want to, even if they think it's stupid, they make fun of you for it. Make sure you have the conversation before you pay, ideally, for something, or before you finish a song, because people will try to screw you over once you have something that you want, and that you want to put out, that you wanted to use. They will then try to oftentimes change what they said, change the rules, change the splits, change the payment, change so I would say to make sure you get the contract in advance. And as an indie artist, I'm constantly getting sent contracts from different things. It's tough to read them yourself. I oftentimes do, to save money, but I would say that maybe find yourself a good lawyer that is really affordable, that can just look over it quickly for you, so you don't have to spend days waiting to sign it and get things started just because you don't totally understand it. Get a good lawyer that is affordable, that was willing to work with you, or is willing to work with you on a rate or a percentage or something. I think probably just paying a low fee is the right call to get it done. But you know, get yourself a producer's agreement, a songwriter collaborations agreement, and someone to look over your contracts, because it really is crazy how things, like, I've had people say things, and then once they knew I, you know, was ready to put it out, then things totally change. And it's you should be really careful with that. And those are my biggest pitfalls that I think a lot of indie artists come across.
That is so awesome.
Yeah, I hope
I know
that
how
was
helpful
helpful.
that is. Oh my gosh, amazing. Yes.
Yeah, just trying to be very honest. Oh, I'm reading these comments. Thank you, Val. I'm so proud to be a Karakeet. I'm so glad. I hope you find this interesting, even those of you that are not in the music industry, you know, that it's, or, you know, Val, you are actually in the music industry. But if you're not too, I hope you find the behind the scenes interesting. You know, it's the Wild West out there, really, for independent artists at this time in 2019, coming on 2020. There's no right way to do things. Like, TikTok is blowing up right now. People are getting followers from being featured on certain like music accounts on Instagram. The things are not the same as they were even a year ago. Like, truly, it changes very quickly.
What are your thoughts on TikTok?
I think TikTok is going to be huge. Personally, I've thought that for years. I've been lazy and haven't really gotten on there because another social platform seems like a lot sometimes. But I think TikTok is going to be really big. I think that people are personally, like, I mean, and I say this as someone who loves Instagram, but I think that Instagram is showing a lot of paid promotion lately, and you're not fully, they're not showing the feed in the way that they used to with just the people you follow. It's very curated to the algorithm. They're showing you people that are paying. They're showing you, it's not what it once was. As much, I really love Instagram, and I say that prefacing it, but I think people are sort of moving to TikTok in a way because it's still going on the organic kind of thing where you can still be found in the discover pages. And it's a good way to discover music, and people are paying for TikTok campaigns.
Wow. That's good.
And I was hesitant to do something like that, but because I think you have to make sure you have the song that you really want to spend that money on, because otherwise, you know, you can't just throw money into everything, right? But people are doing TikTok campaigns, and it's a huge business, similar to the Spotify promotion services. The TikTok campaigns are a huge thing now. So if you're not on there, I'm not really on there, but even last night I was like, I'm probably going to start trying to make a TikTok every week or every few days, because it really is.
Wow.
I think people are discovering, like, songs are blowing up on TikTok, and it's kind of just starting to happen. We're kind of on like the precipice of it. It's been happening for a couple years, but now it's like.
Is it specifically just for artists?
No, it's
not. For musicians, or like with somebody like me who, you know, like encourages artists. Like,
you could be on there for sure. It's not. It's mostly like comedy and music, but it's like lip syncing. Like, you're kind of creating like a funny thing, but you could do whatever you want, because you can record the audio yourself, and then people can redo what you did. So if you were like, now, if you want to be an artist, these are your tips, someone could then repost that lip syncing to your tips. Like, if you want to, you know, so you could get creative with it. I think it's probably best for comedy and for music, because if you have a song that's on there, you can do a lip sync dance to it, and then someone else can do a lip sync dance to it.
Oh my gosh.
So it's almost better than Instagram paying for an influencer or something, because there's no say that the person is going to hear the song. Like, even if someone puts you in their story and says, swipe up to, this so-and-so's new song, they have to leave the app. They have to really want to go listen to that song. Whereas TikTok, built in its core, it's about redoing the thing. So if an influencer or anybody does your song and is like lip syncing to it, the whole point of the app is for then kids and people to go lip sync to that song. And again, and then their followers see them doing it to that song, and then they do it to that song, and the song keeps going. It's only like 15 seconds. So you have to really have a song that you think has 15 seconds that are very strong. And you have to just be really willing to, like, you can reach out to influencers, and I haven't really tapped into that so much, but I know that there's a huge potential there to, like, reach out to people and have them make TikToks to your song and get their followers to do it.
Wow,
So.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, listen, Kara, I love that we did this together today, and
Yeah,
thank
I love
you
it
so
too.
much for your feedback, your input.
Yeah.
So for all of you who are tuning in either now or on the replay, if you're tuning in on the replay, make sure you just put a little comment below replay so we'll know. And I have another free training coming up next Friday at 2:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, 12:30. And it's going to be all about the 3 power plays that you can make right now in your music career to get better gigs, to make more money, and not be, most importantly, in the same spot you were like right now. So if
That
this
sounds
is
great.
something, I know, right? So if you're
Yeah.
somebody who's moving into 2020 and you're looking to really create some momentum and getting the most out of 2020, then you're definitely going to want this free training. Again, it's next Friday, and you can register. I put the link in the comments so you can register today. And registration will be happening between now and next Friday, of course. And I really would love to see you all on it. It's going to be amazing. So I'm going to be really walking you through 3 crucial things that you can do right now to just get the most out of your music career. So anyway, Kara, thank you
I
so
love
much
that.
again.
I've got to tune
I know,
into
and
that
please
one.
share.
And
yeah,
and I know Brianna has her awesome, amazing courses too. So I think it's really great and amazing what you're doing for artists, specifically independent artists who maybe need some advice or how to move forward, don't quite know. I know I was definitely in that position, and I've been in that position and sometimes still am in that position. So I think it's really, really amazing what you're doing. And I think I just want to say that I highly recommend Brianna's courses. I think that they're really awesome. And when I've checked out the different modules and stuff, and I think that they're really helpful. So that's coming from me, who's been in some of those phases too. I'm like, yep, that's a good tip. Yep, that's something that needs to happen. So I think it's so cool that you have a passion for this, and that you really care about the artists that you're talking to and helping. It's rare to find someone that has that care and that concern really for the artists, and isn't just trying to take advantage of the artist, which happens a lot. So we're all very grateful as independent artists for you. So I just want to say that I love what you're doing, and that I think anyone who's on there should definitely check out your courses.
Well, thank you for that. That means a lot to me coming from you, and I adore you as well. And I appreciate your time today, and I'm excited that we got to do this. And thank you to everyone who was on the live today. Let's see, we had Val, we had Joe, we had Jessica, we had Morgan, we had, let's see, who else did we have? We had Daniel. Yeah, thank you all, and appreciate your patience at the top. We had our little technical difficulties. And have a fantastic weekend ahead.
Yes, have a great weekend. And if you guys ever have any other questions, let me know. I try to respond to things. So if anything wasn't clear, or if you realize you have a question about something I said, feel free to, either reach out to Brianna, who I'm sure would know some answers to it too, or if you want to ask me anything, feel free to shoot me a message, and I hope we can connect.
And let's see, BriannaRuelasmusic.com is where you can find me. And then Kara, will you tell us what your Instagram is and also your website?
Yeah, I'm at KaraConnolly.com. You can see 2 O's, 2 N's, 2 L's. And my Instagram is just Kara at Kara Connolly. So follow me, find me on there. You can find my music on the website, and you can send me a message on either.
Hey, and I need 2 of those shirts that say, I want to date a nice guy. Is that what it is?
I want a nice guy.
I want a nice guy. Yeah, I need two of
You
those.
could have one.
Christmas is coming up. I got two
Okay,
people who need
okay.
that. Okay. All right.
Oh
Well,
my
it's
God,
been a
that's so funny.
pleasure.
Okay.
All right. Love you, dear.
Yes, so good to see you always. Love you. Thank you for having me. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Mwah, mwah.